Is calorie counting a complete waste of time? I can see the look.
Yes. I mean, the answer is yes. Done. Right. Next podcast. Welcome to the Wellness Breakdown. I'm Rose Ferguson.
And I'm Eve Kalinik, and we are super excited that we are now YouTubing our podcast, which means that not only can you listen to it on an audio format, but you can also watch us on video. The podcast basically works with Rose and I setting challenges for each other based on specific wellness trends and fads that we know a lot of you guys are interested in, and that's kind of how the podcast came about, right?
If you have anything that you would like us to look into or investigate further, any fads or crazy stuff you're trying, then let us know, because we love to hear from you.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Wellness Breakdown, and I can't believe that we're halfway through season 4 already, Rose. We've already had our fair share of nice and, well, not so nice challenges.
I think it's been quite even this season. I feel like it's been quite balanced, she says, before hearing your new challenge. And we've got some really great guests coming up as well in the next few episodes, so tune in for those. We've had some brilliant emails, and we love getting your emails, so please do message us if you have any questions or want us to trial anything. You can email us at info@thewellnessbreakdown.co.uk. So this one was from Liz. Hang on, let me read it. It said, "Hello, I just wanted to say I absolutely love listening to your podcast on UPFs. Well done for completing a whole week." Yes, well done, Eve. "Can I ask a quick question about non-dairy milks, please? I make my own breakfast with oats, chia, pumpkin and sunflower seeds, hemp, cacao nibs and a mixture of nuts, and then topped off with berries. I do use various non-dairy milks. However, listening to your podcast has made me reach into the fridge to see what else is in these milks. And, like you, I was shocked to see some added ingredients. Can you recommend a couple of non-dairy milks, please, that I can buy? I know that Plenish are pretty good. And there is also an Oatly, one of the Oatly ones, which is like a creamy cover with blue writing. And that is just oats and water. What about you, Eve?"
I quite like Rude Health as well. I think Rude Health have got some really good ones. They often, a lot of their products are also organic. Or, I mean, you can make them yourself, but it is a bit of a faff. You need one of those nut milk bags, and yeah, it's all a bit much. But you could make them yourself, to be fair.
I've seen a milk maker, which I've always thought
Yes.
I've never tried it. So if any of you have tried it,
No,
I'd
I
love to
haven't.
know if it's worth it. I always think it, because it pops up on my Instagram, and not being rude to Instagram, but everything I've ever bought from Instagram is not quite as good as it might appear. So I've never done it, but I'd love to know if anyone's using one and if it's useful.
So we've got another email here from Joan. "Hi, Eve and Rose. I only ever went to acupuncture once, and it was years ago. Hearing you talk about the immediate improvements to your shoulder made me think about going again. I've just booked in a session for next week. I'll tell you how it goes. Love your podcast." Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of wasn't really a fad so much, the acupuncture one, but I do think there's been a lot of people messaging saying, "Oh, I'm definitely getting back on it." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how are you getting on? If you can, because you were going to go and have some more sessions, Rose, weren't you?
Yeah, and I will. I had to cancel one, unfortunately, but I will. I'm going to definitely keep going. I really enjoyed it. And also, just not even just my shoulder, but just that feeling of calm after was just really nice. I think it's a great thing.
Yes,
I'm a convert.
totally. Yeah, so thanks everyone for all of those messages, and as always your emails. We read every single one of them, so do keep them coming in. Right, so we are halfway through, and it's your turn this week, Rose. It's not totally awful,
Okay.
but I think you're going to find it really irritating and annoying.
Great. Thanks, Eve. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it after that.
So do you want to hear what I've got set for you?
Yes. Come on.
Okay, so the challenge for this week is calorie counting a complete waste of time? I can see the look.
Yes. I mean, the answer is yes. Done. Right. Next podcast.
Okay, no, I totally get that. And the thing is, why I've picked this challenge is that despite lots of people refuting it, the whole calories in, calories out, they're still so prevalent, and they are kind of, the metric that's universally recognised as a means to measure the amount of energy in foods that are on all of the packets of foods that we buy, but also on menus now even. So this has been used as a way to monitor energy we take in through our food, and usually it's used in things like weight loss programs, and in more recent years it's gained a lot more popularity through kind of a lot of these fitness apps. However, whilst calories can give some indication of the units in the food, they don't give any necessary data on the nutritional value and quality of the food, and this is why a lot of people have kind of put it under a lot more scrutiny. So I wanted to see rather, I'm already saying wanted to see if calorie counting has any validity at all and can be useful in supporting our health and well-being, or is it just a total waste of time and maybe has some other, negative side effects. Why I've picked it for you is that I know you are unequivocally not an advocate for calorie counting, both personally and professionally, as am I. So I think you'll find this frustrating and potentially really tedious. I'd be really interested to see how you feel after the week, if it's changed your approach to certain foods, if you start changing the way you're eating, do you start to restrict or in fact eat more than you feel you intuitively need or want. So the rules are that you have to count calories for a week using an app, which will have been calculated according to your age, height, weight, and so you have to meet that target amount over the course of the week, and you have to upload everything that you eat and drink for the duration of the week. And I'd also like you to note how you're feeling throughout the week, both physically and mentally. How do you feel about that, Rose?
Well, it's not the hardest challenge in the world. I love the fact that you're already preempting my irritable, annoying. It's funny because when I was listening to you tell me the rules, I was already making judgments. And the point of doing these is that we go in without judgment. So I will give it all I've got. I will go in with an open mind. So I will get my fitness pal out, which I haven't used for years.
Have you ever done it before, maybe when you were younger, or because calorie counting's been used for a long time, hasn't it? So people would have had to have written it down. It's quite a commitment, isn't it?
I grew up in the age of Weight Watchers when everything was about calorie counting and points, and I've never done it. Having said that, I did use my fitness pal before. There was a time, probably about 8 years ago, that a lot of my clients were using my fitness pal, but I have never ever in my whole life ever been conscious of calories ever. So it will be interesting.
We're very happy that Ancient and Brave is back as our season sponsor. They have an incredible range of collagen supplements, MCT oil, and nootropic blends. As well as nourishing your skin, hair, and nails, collagen has been associated with whole body health benefits, which may include supporting joints and muscles to gut health.
Eve and I are both fans of supplementing collagen, but not all collagen is created equal. Ancient and Brave's is beautifully pure, highly absorbable, and clinically researched. Also, very easy to take as part of your everyday ritual, as it's also odourless and tasteless. Perfect added to your morning coffee or daily cacao.
Consistency is key when taking supplements, and to get you started, Ancient and Brave is offering 20% off your first 3 orders when you subscribe with the code WELLNESS20.
Ancient and Brave are passionate about sustainability. They are a B Corp and a member of the powerful global initiative 1% for the planet. So 1% of all sales go towards environmental causes that protect the planet. So buying their products means you're supporting the planet too.
It's really interesting, digging into this about how calories are measured. I wasn't really so clued up on it until obviously we took on the challenge, and I was just like, how do they actually even measure a calorie properly? But they actually get the food and they stick it in an insulated chamber that has water around it, and then they burn the food, and when it's completely burnt, they actually measure the temperature of the water, and that denotes how many calories are in that food. And apparently it was developed in the 1820s, so it has been around for a long time, but there's so many caveats to it. You're not taking into account the way that somebody might absorb the food. So the way that we break down and absorb foods has a lot of variables to it, like what our insulin levels are like, how effectively are we more efficient at burning, say, fats over carbohydrates, what's going on with our microbiome. So those would all affect how much we actually absorb. And then even changing the kind of the matrix of the food. So if you were to eat a handful of almonds that just had the skin on and everything like that, and they've got fibre, and you're going to extract a lot less calories than, say, if those almonds were ground, even though on the packet it would say it's exactly the same calories. So I think there's just like so many of those things like that are just make it so inaccurate. And it's not even taking into consideration like quality of the foods or anything like that.
For me, one of the examples I use for people who are avid calorie counters, I always say, if you drink a can of Coca-Cola, it's viscous. You will absorb every single one of those calories. It goes into the bloodstream really fast. And then if you're eating sweet corn, it passes through, and sometimes you see it in as a whole on the other side. So you haven't absorbed any of those calories. There are so many problems with calorie counting that arise from people not understanding that. And actually the almond one is a really good one because they're exactly the same calorie value. But what you absorb and what you don't absorb, and what passes through as fibre, which is all good, it makes it very different calorie count to the body.
Well, look, I don't want to dig into it too much here because obviously I want to see how you get on with it and just see what happens and how you feel around it, and physically, emotionally, does it change things in terms of how you're eating and stuff. So good luck with it, Rose, and I'll see you in a week's time.
All right, see you then. I'm firing up my Fitness Pal, which has been in the cloud for many years now for my calorie counting. Reading the rules, I just know that I'm going to find it difficult because it's inputting everything that you eat all the time. Anyway, today I start my calorie counting. Okay, here you go. This is the problem with calorie counting. So for someone who totally understands the difference between calories, I have just put my flaxseed cracker back in the box because when you eat a pack of flaxseed crackers, that's like 450 calories. And I just checked myself doing it. I went back and got my flaxseed crackers. I was like, don't be so stupid. But that is the problem. It just tells you there's shitloads of calories in one thing, which there are. I know that. And so it was saying that my lunch today was like most of my calorie intake for the day because I had some flaxseed crackers, like a lentil burgery thing, like a lentil risol, I guess, and some hummus, which is also really high in calories, and some nut butter and an apple. And it just shows you the problem with bloody calorie counting. Because even me, who knows exactly the deal, it still affects your mindset around food. Anyway, I ate my bloody flaxseed cracker. But therein lies the issue for me with it. Oh, the calorie counting's not going very well. I completely forgot for 2 days, 2 whole days. And then I went back to trying to remember what I'd eaten. So that wasn't very precise. Oh, it's such a pain. And also, I wonder if it makes people eat ready food that's all one. Because if you put in like an onion, how much of an onion? A bit of garlic, like some turmeric, some cumin, some carrots, some leeks, a bit of chicken, it's just so many ingredients. And you just think, I can't be bothered. So apart from the fact that, it's not very precise, my calorie counting, and it's really, really getting on my nerves, just even thinking about the fact that I haven't done it. All right, final thoughts on calorie counting. Well, on the upside, it has been interesting because it does show you, the app that I'm using shows proteins, fats, etc., etc. So it gives you a bit more information than just calories. And also it takes into account what exercise you've done, so it adjusts accordingly. But even on the days when I've broken the calorie barrier because I've eaten lots of nut butters or, whatever it is, if I've had quite a lot of good fats, at least I understand why that is, so it doesn't freak me out. But I definitely think it's just so boring and it really takes the fun out of eating. I mean, God, I've been in restaurants and pubs, like putting in my calorie counting, because I also know that people underreport usually. It's usually under rather than over-reporting of what they've eaten. So I've been trying to do it as I go because otherwise I just forget. And then I even got to the point where I couldn't be bothered to eat something because I'd have to put it into the app, which might be good for people who are chronic grazers and just snack all day. And it does make you realise that you're grazing all day because you're very accountable to the app. But otherwise, I don't know that it's particularly fantastic for relationships with food. It sort of sucks the joy out of it.
So, Rose, how are you doing after your week of calorie counting?
I do feel like a Weight Watchers lady a little bit. I suppose Weight Watchers was more measuring, wasn't it? I wasn't measuring anything. I feel fine. Obviously, I haven't done anything like eating ultra processed foods all week. But it was a very interesting exercise in relationships with food, I'd say. How on earth are you supposed to count the calories when you go to a restaurant and you don't know what they've cooked it in? You know, and I'm not one of those people who goes, could you please grill that with no oil, please? You know, it's like if I'm going to order a steak, I'm going to have
Yeah.
it as it comes, because that is really complicated. And then at dinner, you're either going to get on your phone and do it while you're there with people, or you're going to be thinking about that when you're eating, like going, okay, so I had 12 chips. Now they're little chips. Does that, you know, or I had, you know,
Oh my
do
God.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think it's really negative. I think that's really negative.
Toxic.
And you're not enjoying what you're supposed to be doing, which in turn probably leads
Yeah.
to stress and lack of digestion. I didn't
Yeah.
love it. I found it very, very cumbersome. Obviously, I had to be super aware of everything that was going in my mouth. It was I felt very restricted. I'm lucky I've never suffered with an eating disorder. Having said that, my relationship with food, like I think everybody's, is not perfect. But it really made me aware of what I was eating, and not in a good way, you know. And as in my voice notes, I said, my flaxseed cracker that I love. So
Yes. Yeah.
these flaxseed crackers, they're really artisanal, and they come in like probably 4 in a packet. And those 4 can get eaten like that. So according to the packet, they are 470 calories for 100 grams or whatever. I can't remember now. But, you know, I think the packet is 160 grams, something like that. This is like really good for you. And I know that. And I know, you know, when we discussed it when you set the challenge, it's full of fibre. A lot of those little flax seeds aren't going to actually get digested or broken down. They're going to pass through. And yet here I was wondering whether I should continue eating them and putting them back and then getting them out again. And that's a sign of something that's not quite right, I think. I understand how food works. People who don't understand how food works, and you think about the choices that they're going to make according to a calorie counter, is worrying, I'd say. I'd say it's worrying.
The app's not taking into consideration at all the quality of the foods that you're eating. So, for instance, you could have had, like, let's just compare something like Rivita or something
Yeah.
like that, right? You could have eaten a whole load more of those, but actually, when you look at what's the nutritional density of the flaxseed cracker or whatever you know that you had, it's going to be infinitely better. And it's not to say that like I'm not putting like labels on foods, because I don't think that helps either to say something's good or bad, because actually that's very often not the case. But I'm just using that as an example to show that there is a marked difference there. But if you were to just take it on calories alone, that you would be eating a lot of foods that are actually quite devoid in nutrients. I mean, that is the problem, because a lot of those low fat diet foods will be low in calories, but they also then contain a lot of chemicals, emulse, all the stuff that basically I was eating a couple of weeks back.
Yes.
So yeah, they might be low in calories, but they don't have like anything really in there in terms of a nutritional value. And I think that is the problem. I know there's a lot of restaurants now, not all of them, so I don't know why that's happened, but there are a lot of places now that have the calories on the menus. What do you feel about that, Rose?
That is really true, actually. And the thing is, where I eat, where I ate last week, were the pubs around here. So they don't actually have calories. And I'd forgotten that, because I remember when it came out, there was a real hoo-ha about it. And rightly so. It really does play with your mind. Like when you... I mean, then on the other side, then I sort of think, well, you know, something like a Domino's pizza, sorry, Domino's, but it's got a huge amount of fats, not great fats, and sugars, and all not great ingredients. But having said that, if you want a Domino's pizza and you're buying it and that's what you're getting, then having the calorie count on there is really unhelpful. I think it feels very self-punishing. It's such a step back. I mean, I remember in the late 80s, or 80s, that's what people used to do, and it was such and that's how I felt. I felt like an 80s woman, like, being really conscious about every single thing I put in my mouth.
Did you notice it when you were in the modelling days? Did you see like other people doing it, Rose, or?
I think it was something that the older generation did. I didn't know. I don't think girls could get their shit together really to do that sort of thing. And if you think about how difficult it was to do that in the 90s, because you wouldn't have, I suppose you have a little pen and paper and you write down all the calorie values.
That's what I mean.
You know, it's
quite laborious. It's quite a commitment,
so laborious,
isn't it?
yeah. Because I think calorie counting and calorie restriction are different. So there may have been calorie restriction going on when I was a model. You know, everyone always sort of talks about that, like, oh, everybody was, you know, I was in the era of waifs and grunge and heroin chic. I remember my mum calling me going, darling, there's a thing in the newspaper that says you're a heroin addict, because everyone was so like, it was also the way you were photographed. I was like,
I mean,
no.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny, is it?
It's not funny, was it?
Poor
actually?
mum, she must have had an absolute heart attack.
At the time, it wasn't funny at all. It really wasn't. And I was like, Mum, honestly, but it's just also the way people were photographed at the time.
I definitely did see some of that in PR, but do you know where I did see it more was when I was dancing. And I know a lot of girls there were like religiously logging their food, like obsessively, like spreadsheets, written spreadsheets at the time. But so yeah, I do think that it was definitely around. There'll always be some level of pervading diet culture, unfortunately. I think hopefully we're moving out of that a bit with all kind of positive, body images and stuff like that are coming out. But, I think it just got taken over with other types of diet culture. But now I feel like it's come back again. Like I hear it more in my clinic and things like that, people using the apps and whatnot. And obviously with the Fitspo kind of thing, people are using that a lot more. I mean, of course, there's going to be people that don't have an idea maybe of how much they're consuming in certain things, but then it can also then breed that negative relationship where they forego a healthy food like an avocado, which is very calorie dense, or nuts and seeds, for instance, for like, a diet yogurt or something, So then it's like the knowledge actually isn't driving empowerment, it's actually disempowering them and actually driving that dysfunctional, disassociate and inherently unhealthy relationship with their food and their body.
And the other thing, I tell you what, I didn't say is that when I intermittent fasted, which I do sometimes just because that's what happens in my day, you've said in the past that you feel like it's a way of calorie restricting. So getting a low calorie count. It was lower. And it made me giggle because I was like, oh, damn, I haven't hit what the app is telling me I need today. So that was
interesting because intuitively you were like, actually, I don't necessarily need as many calories, but then you're feeling like, and did that like mess with your head? Was there some sense of achievement for not having met it? I don't know. Like, how was that changing your relationship with your food, or were you just like, okay, well, I've banked those, so I'm going to have them more calories tomorrow? Did you have that kind of thing going on?
No, I was just annoyed that you might be right about calorie restriction. People using time restricted eating for calorie restriction, because I'm always like, no, people don't do that. Because in my mind, when you reduce your eating window, you should be consuming the same. It's just that your eating window is smaller. We see so many people in our clinics who have extreme issues with their relationships with food, and counting your calories is really detrimental to that, I would say. I mean, just from this small week, but also I think we probably know that anyway, but I can confirm that is the case.
Did you find that you either lost or gained weight at all? Because I think the thing about calorie counting, it's a lot to do with weight. So did you put into the app that you wanted to maintain weight? Because sometimes it will work out your calories, won't it, based on what you want to achieve?
No, I didn't. I wasn't interested in weight loss. And I suppose I was thinking more about the process of logging and what that felt like emotionally. You can feel why it would become obsessive, and people would become obsessed by making sure they've logged. And then you think about, if you are in that mindset, when you have a few glasses of wine, let me tell you, the calorie count goes up. I mean, can you imagine when you're out having to log your alcohol drinks? People, I can imagine, people doing that, and then the next day, and here you go, this is a teeny tiny little binge purge cycle, is that they have a few drinks, which is definitely not a binge, but just, for the sake of, and then the next day they will restrict to try and get that calorie count back into line.
But you did touch on something interesting there, which is human error. So if you've had like a couple of glasses of wine, you're probably not going to be logging your food very accurately either. So there's huge disparity actually, because most people do underreport on their calories. So really then it makes the whole thing a complete and utter waste of time, which was really the title of the challenge. So to sum up, Rose, has this challenge changed your thoughts or your opinions at all on calorie counting?
No, I still really don't like them. I'm actually in recovery from calorie counting now. I've got to undo that little bit of my brain. And it just is terrifying because if it triggers that in me, it will be triggering that in many, many people. I almost would go as far to say it's evil because it just is. It's just misinformation. It's misinformation and it generates obsessive behaviour, I'd say, around food, which is total antithesis of what I believe is the right way to eat.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting because the foods that don't have their calories written on them, like fresh fruits and vegetables mostly, are the ones that actually ironically we should be eating more of. Thank you so much for giving us insight into that and what it can do to somebody that, like you said, you have a healthy relationship with food and knows what you can and can't eat. And so yeah, it was really brilliant. So thanks a lot. Well, that's it, Rose. Thanks for joining us on the Wellness Breakdown, everyone. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a comment below.
Yes, please do. And remember that we have 3 more series on audio that you can listen to. So you can find it wherever you get your podcasts from.
Yes, so see you next week on the podcast when we'll be talking about nootropics. So please do join us then.
Have a fantastic week, everyone.